When investor after investor walked away, Michaela Dunn thought her dream was dead, until a mysterious driver delivered more than a ride. But who is Elijah Wolf really, and what secret could ruin everything? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Michaela Dunn stared at the rejection email on her phone and fought back tears. Another investor backing out. 3 years of work, sleepless nights, and every dollar she had, all on the line. And now, this. Not again, she whispered, slumping, against her kitchen counter, where jars of her handmade skincare products sat in neat rows. Her tiny Charlotte apartment doubled as her production facility, with mixing bowls, essential oils, and shipping labels covering every surface. What had started as experiments for her own sensitive skin had grown into Done Right Skincare, a business she'd built from nothing. Michaela glanced at the clock. 6:30 p.m. She had exactly 30 minutes to get across town for her meeting with Wolf Investments, a private equity firm that might be her last hope. Come on, girl. Pull it together, she said to herself, grabbing her presentation folder and sample kit. She rushed out to the street, frantically waving for a taxi as rain began to fall. Of course it would rain today, of all days. Her carefully straightened hair would be ruined by the time she arrived. Just as she was about to give up, a sleek black car pulled to the curb. The window rolled down to reveal a man with kind eyes and a crisp suit. "Ms. Dunn?" he asked. She hesitated. "I didn't order a car." "Wolf Investments sent me," he explained. "I'm Eli. They thought you might need a ride." Relief washed over her. At least something was going right. "Thank you, I'm already running late." Once inside the car, Michaela tried to compose herself. She opened her compact mirror and fixed her makeup, rehearsing numbers under her breath. "First pitch dinner?" Eli asked, his eyes meeting hers briefly, in the rearview mirror. "Is it that obvious?" she sighed. "You seem prepared. That's good." Michaela laughed nervously. "Prepared? I'm a mess. My biggest investor pulled out this morning. 3 years of work, and I'm right back where I started." She didn't know why she was telling this to a stranger, a driver no less. But something about his calm presence made her feel safe. "Tell me about your business," he said. "Skincare, specifically for people with sensitive skin and hyperpigmentation issues. Products that actually work for diverse skin tones." She paused. "I started it in my kitchen. Still make everything by hand. That's impressive. Or foolish. Everyone keeps telling me to outsource production, scale up, compromise on ingredients, but I won't put my name on anything I wouldn't use myself." The traffic slowed to a standstill. Michaela checked the time again and groaned. "We're going to be late, aren't we?" Eli nodded. "Rush hour, I'm sorry." Michaela felt the familiar weight of anxiety pressing on her chest. "Story of my life. Always chasing, always falling short. I'm so tired of smiling through rejection, you know. Pretending it doesn't hurt when doors keep closing." She caught herself and looked up, embarrassed. "Sorry, you don't need to hear all this." Eli's eyes met hers in the mirror again. They were thoughtful, perceptive. "Maybe you just need someone real to believe in you," he said quietly. Something about the way he said it, so simple, so sincere, made her throat tighten. "Thank you for that," she said softly. When they finally arrived at the restaurant, Michaela rushed inside, only to be met by a hostess with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, Ms. Dunn. Mr. Richardson had to leave." He said to convey his apologies, but he needed to catch a flight. Did he reschedule?" Michaela asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "He said his assistant would be in touch." Michaela nodded, numb with disappointment. She walked back outside where Eli still waited. "That was fast," he said, then noticed her expression. "Bad news?" They left. Meeting cancelled. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "Would you mind taking me home?" The ride back was quiet. Michaela stared out the window, watching the city lights blur through her tears. "For what it's worth," Eli said as they pulled up to her apartment building, "I think they're making a mistake." She gave him a sad smile. "Thanks for the ride. Take care, Ms. Dunn." 3 weeks later, Michaela sat on her couch surrounded by packing boxes. She'd finally accepted reality. Her business was failing. It was time to cut her losses and find a real job again. Her phone rang with an unknown number. "Hello?" Miss Dunn? This is Jennifer Wilson from Pinnacle Legal Group. I'm calling regarding the acquisition of Done Right Skincare. Michaela frowned. There must be some mistake. My business isn't being acquired. According to our paperwork, your company was purchased in full yesterday. The buyer has named you Creative Director with complete product autonomy and a substantial salary increase. We need you to come to our office to sign the final paperwork. Michaela's heart raced. Who bought my company? The client prefers to discuss that in person. A car will pick you up tomorrow morning at 9. Before Michaela could respond, the woman hung up. She spent a sleepless night wondering if this was some cruel joke. By morning, she'd convinced herself it had to be a mistake. But at precisely 9 o'clock, a black car identical to the one from 3 weeks ago pulled up outside. This time, Eli didn't say much as he drove her to a gleaming downtown office building. He escorted her up to a conference room where lawyers waited with stacks of documents. Ms. Dunn, a woman greeted her. These are the ownership transfer papers. As you can see, you retain creative control over all product development and branding. The new owner is simply providing capital and business infrastructure. But who is the new owner? Michaela demanded. The door opened and Eli walked in. Except he wasn't dressed like a driver anymore. His suit was clearly expensive, custom-made. He carried himself differently, with the easy confidence of someone who belonged. That would be me, he said. Michaela stared at him. You're the driver. I'm Elijah Wolf. He extended his hand. And I believe in what you're building. She didn't take his hand. You lied to me. I didn't give you my full name or title. There's a difference. The lawyers shifted uncomfortably. Elijah nodded to them. Give us the room, please. When they were alone, Michaela crossed her arms. What is this, some kind of game? It's business, Ms. Dunn. I saw potential in your company. No, she cut him off. You saw me at my lowest point. You let me pour my heart out thinking you were just some nice guy doing his job, when really you were what? Testing me? Evaluating? Me? Elijah leaned against the conference table. I was supposed to attend that dinner with Mr. Richardson. I often drive myself to meetings. It gives me time to think. When your name came up on the schedule, I decided to pick you up myself. Why? I wanted to meet you without the pressure of titles, to see who you really are. Michaela laughed bitterly. And who am I, Mr. Wolf? Someone genuine in a world of fakes, someone who believes in what she's creating. He stepped closer. Someone worth investing in. She shook her head. This isn't normal. Normal investors don't play undercover boss. Not a normal investor, clearly. She took a deep breath. So what happens now? Now we build your brand the right way. No cutting corners, no compromising on quality, just like you wanted. And if I say no? Elijah shrugged. The papers include a clause that if you choose not to stay on, you receive a generous buyout and retain rights to your formulas. You can walk away right now. Michaela studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or deceit. She found none. Why me? She asked finally. Why my little company? Because you care about more than profit. Because you wouldn't give up, even when you should have, he paused. And because when you didn't know who I was, you were real with me. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Before she could answer, the door opened and an older man in an expensive suit burst in. Elijah, what is this I'm hearing about you acquiring some kitchen cosmetics company without board approval? His eyes landed on Michaela with obvious disapproval. Father, Elijah said coolly. This is Michaela Dunn, founder of Done Right Skincare. Ms. Dunn, this is my father, Harold Wolf. Harold barely acknowledged her. This is precisely the kind of impulsive decision that makes the board question your judgment. We have acquisition protocols for a reason. I used my personal funds, not company resources, Elijah replied calmly. We'll discuss this later, Harold said, then turned to Michaela. Ms. Dunn, I'm sure you're very talented, but you should know that my son has a habit of picking up projects. Try not to get too comfortable. After he left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. I apologize for my father, Elijah said. Is he right? Michaela asked. Am I just a project to you? No, you're not. The intensity in his eyes caught her off guard. You're much more than that. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Michaela moved into a real office space with a proper lab for product development. She hired 2 assistants and worked closely with marketing experts who respected her vision. But she kept her distance from Elijah. Whenever he visited, she was polite but professional, never allowing conversations to stray beyond business. One evening, as she worked late in her lab, Elijah appeared in the doorway. "You've been avoiding me," he said. "I've been busy," she replied, not looking up from her mixing bowl. "Building a company takes time. You don't trust me." She finally met his gaze. "Should I? You pretended to be someone you're not." "I never pretended. I just didn't tell you everything." He stepped into the lab. "But you're right. Trust has to be earned." He rolled up his sleeves and gestured to her work. "Show me what you're making." Surprised, Michaela hesitated before explaining the new formula she was developing, a brightening serum for hyperpigmentation. "These ingredients are expensive," she said, "but they work better than the synthetic alternatives." "Then we use them," Elijah said simply. As they worked side by side, Michaela reluctantly found herself relaxing. He asked intelligent questions and seemed genuinely interested in the science behind her products. "Why skincare?" he asked as they cleaned up. She touched the faint discoloration on her right cheek. "Growing up, I had severe eczema and hyperpigmentation. Nothing worked. The products for sensitive skin didn't address dark spots, and the brightening products irritated my skin. So you created what you needed." "Yes, and then friends wanted some, then friends of friends. Before I knew it, I had a business." She smiled at the memory. "My mother thought I was crazy to quit my accounting job. What does she think now?" Michaela's smile faded. "She passed away last year. Cancer." "I'm sorry," he said softly. "She was my biggest supporter, even when she didn't understand what I was doing. After my father left, she worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. He left when I was 12. He had big dreams that never panned out. One day the pressure was just too much, I guess." She shrugged. "Mom always said that's why I needed to be independent, so I'd never have to depend on someone who might disappear." Elijah was quiet for a moment. "My mother died when I was 10. Car accident." "I'm sorry." "My father threw himself into work after that. The company became everything. He was grooming me to take over from the moment she was gone." His expression darkened. "Everything I do is measured against his standards, his vision. Is that why you bought my company? An act of rebellion?" "No." He looked directly at her. "I bought it because when you sat in my car that night, talking about your dreams, it was the first real conversation I'd had in years. Everyone in my world wants something from me, my name, my connections, my money. And what do you want from me, Elijah?" The question hung between them. His eyes held hers, and for a moment, Michaela felt something shift in the air. "A chance," he said finally, "to prove I'm not just the name on your checks." Before she could respond, her phone rang. It was her best friend, Tasha. "I should take this," she said. Elijah nodded. "Good night, Michaela." After he left, Tasha's voice came through the speaker. "Girl, why are you still at the office? It's almost 9. "Just finishing up some work." "With your mysterious billionaire boss?" "He's not my boss," Michaela corrected. I don't know what he is." "I've seen his pictures online. What he is fine." Michaela laughed. "Stop it. Have you Googled him? The man is on the most eligible bachelor list every year. And he's never serious about anyone. We have a professional relationship." "And that's why you're working alone with him at 9 o'clock on a Friday." "Goodbye, Tasha." After hanging up, Michaela found herself typing Elijah's name into her phone's search bar. Dozens of images appeared. Elijah at galas, business events, and charity functions. Always impeccably dressed, often with a beautiful woman on his arm. Never the same woman twice. She closed the browser, suddenly uncomfortable. What was she doing? This man had bought her company, possibly on a whim. She couldn't afford to forget that no matter how genuine he seemed. The next morning, Michaela arrived at the office to find a small package on her desk. Inside was a jar of her very first product, the moisturizer she'd created in her kitchen 3 years ago, now professionally packaged with the Done Right logo. A note accompanied it. "This is just the beginning." Michaela traced the logo with her finger, a strange mix of pride and uncertainty filling her chest. What had she gotten herself into? 1 month into their partnership, Done Right Skincare was transforming rapidly. The company now occupied an entire floor in the Wolf Enterprises building, with a state-of-the-art lab, marketing department, and a small but growing team. Michaela stood in her new office, gazing out at the Charlotte skyline. Sometimes she still couldn't believe how much had changed. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Board meeting in 15 minutes. She straightened her blazer and checked her reflection. These meetings always made her nervous, especially when Harold Wolf attended. Elijah's father made no secret of his disapproval, watching her with cold eyes whenever she spoke. When she entered the conference room, the board members were already seated. Elijah sat at the head of the table, his expression brightening when he saw her. "Ms. Dunn, perfect. Timing," he said. "We were just discussing the launch timeline." Harold cleared his throat. "As I was saying, we need to accelerate production. The current schedule is too conservative." "We're still finalizing the formulations," Michaela said, taking her seat. "Quality testing takes time." "Time is money," Harold replied dismissively. "Our competitors are already developing similar products." Michaela felt her temper rising. "With all due respect, Mr. Wolf, our products aren't similar to anything on the market. That's the entire point." Harold's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps in your kitchen laboratory that was true. But in the real business world—" "Father," Elijah interrupted, "Michaela is the expert here. If she says the formulations need more time, then they need more time." The tension in the room was palpable. Harold looked like he wanted to argue further, but instead gathered his papers. "I have another meeting," he said stiffly. "Elijah, we'll discuss this later." After he left, the rest of the meeting proceeded smoothly. When it concluded, Michaela lingered behind, waiting until everyone else had gone. "You didn't have to defend me," she told Elijah. "I can handle your father." "I know you can." But he was out of line. Elijah ran a hand through his hair. "He's been this way since my mother died. The company became his whole identity. And yours too? That was always his plan." Elijah's voice held a hint of bitterness. "The perfect heir to the Wolf legacy." Michaela studied him. "Is that why you bought my company? To prove something to him?" "No." He met her gaze directly. "I did it because I believed in you. Still do." Something in his voice made her heart beat faster. Before she could respond, his assistant appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Wolf, your 3 o'clock is waiting." Elijah nodded. "We'll continue this conversation later?" "Sure," Michaela said, suddenly flustered. "Later." That evening, Michaela was working late in the lab when her cell phone rang. The screen showed Marcus Harris, a name she hadn't seen in years, her ex-boyfriend, the one who had laughed when she first told him about her skincare dreams. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" "Kayla, it's me." His voice was as smooth as she remembered. "Long time no talk." "What do you want, Marcus?" "Can't an old friend call to say congratulations? Your company's making waves. I saw the press release about the Wolf acquisition. Something in his tone set off warning bells. Marcus never called without a reason. "Again, what do you want?" he chuckled. "Always straight to the point. That's what I liked about you." "Marcus, I'm in town. Let's have dinner tomorrow, for old time's sake." "I'm busy." "Too busy for the person who helped you create your first formula?" Michaela froze. "What are you talking about? Remember those late nights in your apartment? You mixing ingredients, me offering suggestions? I was practically your co-creator." "That's not true, and you know it," she said, anger rising in her voice. "You mocked my little hobby. Said I was wasting my time." "People change, Kayla, and memories can be subjective." His voice hardened slightly. "Dinner, tomorrow, the Oak Room at 7. We have things to discuss." He hung up before she could refuse again. Michaela sat heavily in her chair, a sick feeling in her stomach. Marcus had never helped her create anything. He had belittled her dreams at every turn until she finally found the courage to leave him 3 years ago. Why was he really calling now? The next morning, Michaela arrived at work distracted and tense. She nearly collided with Elijah in the hallway. "Whoa!" He steadied her by the shoulders. "Everything okay?" "Fine," she said automatically, then sighed. "Actually, no. Can we talk in private?" In her office, she told him about Marcus's call, the false claims, and his insistence on meeting. "I don't understand what he wants," she finished. "We broke up years ago." Elijah's expression had darkened. "Money. He saw the press about the acquisition and thinks there's an opportunity. But he has no claim to my formulas. He never helped me create anything. People like that don't need facts, they just need a story that might sound plausible to the right ears." Elijah leaned forward. "Don't meet with him alone." "I don't plan to meet with him at all." "Good. If he contacts you again, have him speak to our legal team." Michaela nodded, grateful for his support but still unsettled. "I can't believe he'd try something like this." "Unfortunately, success attracts opportunists." Elijah's voice softened. "I've dealt with my share over the years." "I bet you have." She tried to smile. "Must be hard to know who's genuine when you have a billion-dollar last name." Something flashed in his eyes. Vulnerability, perhaps. "That's why that night in the car meant something to me. You had no idea who I was. You just talked to me, like a person." The air between them seemed to grow thicker. Michaela became acutely aware of how close they were sitting, how intently he was looking at her. Her phone buzzed, breaking the moment. A text from Tasha. "Girl, have you seen the news?" Confused, Michaela opened her browser and gasped. There, on a local news site, was a photo of her and Elijah leaving the office building yesterday. The headline read, "Wolf Air's new acquisition, business or pleasure?" "What is this?" she demanded, showing him the screen. Elijah grimaced. "Tabloid nonsense. I'm sorry. I should have warned you this might happen." "Warned me? About what?" "The press has always been interested in my personal life, or what they think is my personal life." Michaela scrolled through the article, her horror growing. It implied that their business partnership was a cover for a romantic relationship, or worse, that she had used her feminine wiles to secure his investment. "This is humiliating," she whispered. "They're making it sound like I—" She couldn't even finish the sentence. "I'll have PR release a statement immediately," Elijah said. "Make it clear this is strictly business." "Is it?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither spoke. "I don't know anymore," he admitted quietly. The office phone rang, shattering the tension. Michaela answered it, grateful for the interruption. "Ms. Dunn, security here. There's a Mr. Marcus Harris in the lobby insisting on seeing you. Says he's a business associate." Michaela's stomach dropped. "I don't want to see him. He's being quite persistent, ma'am." Elijah held out his hand for the phone. "This is Elijah Wolf. Please escort Mr. Harris from the premises. If he resists, call the police." After hanging up, he turned to Michaela. "I think we should continue this conversation somewhere more private, away from the office. What did you have in mind?" "Dinner. My place." He saw her hesitation and added, "Just to talk. I promise." Against her better judgment, Michaela agreed. Elijah's place turned out to be a stunning penthouse overlooking the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Charlotte at sunset. The space was beautifully designed, but somehow impersonal, like a luxury hotel suite rather than a home. "This isn't what I expected," Michaela said, accepting the glass of wine he offered. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. More you, I guess." He glanced around the pristine space. "To be honest, I'm rarely here. It's just somewhere to sleep between meetings. So where is home for you?" A shadow crossed his face. "I'm not sure I have one, not really." Before she could respond, the private elevator dinged. Elijah frowned. No one should be coming up. The doors opened to reveal Harold Wolf, his expression thunderous. He held up a tablet displaying the same tabloid article Michaela had seen earlier. "What is this?" he demanded. "A garbage tabloid story?" Elijah replied coolly. "Nothing more." Harold's gaze shifted to Michaela, then back to his son. "And yet, here she is, in your penthouse, alone." "We're discussing business," Elijah said. "Not that I owe you an explanation." "You owe an explanation." "To the board," Harold snapped. "To the shareholders who are concerned about your judgment. My personal life is not board business. It is when it affects the company." Harold turned to Michaela. "Ms. Dunn, I'm sure you're very talented, but you must understand, the Wolf name has been built over generations. We can't afford scandals or distractions." Michaela felt her face burning with anger and humiliation. "I am not a scandal or a distraction, Mr. Wolf. I'm a business owner who built something valuable enough for your son to invest in. Yes, my son has always had a soft spot for charity cases." "Father, that's enough." Elijah's voice was dangerously quiet. "Is it? First the wildlife sanctuary, then the underprivileged youth program, now this kitchen cosmetics venture. Your mother's bleeding heart lives on in you, and it will be the downfall of everything I've built. Get out!" Elijah's hands were clenched at his sides. "Now!" Harold straightened his tie. "The board meeting is tomorrow at 9. I expect you to have a plan for damage control." He nodded curtly to Michaela. "Ms. Dunn." After he left, the silence was deafening. Elijah stood rigidly staring at the closed elevator doors. "I should go," Michaela said softly. "No." He turned to her, his expression pained. "Please don't. I'm sorry about my father." "Is that how you see me too? A charity case?" "God." "No," he moved closer, his eyes intense. "You're brilliant, Michaela. Your products are revolutionary. Any investor with half a brain would see that. But that's not why you bought my company, is it?" She needed to hear the truth. "Not really," he hesitated. "It was part of it. But no, not entirely." "Then why?" "Because from the moment you got in my car that night, I couldn't stop thinking about you." The words rushed out like he'd been holding them back for too long. "Your passion, your honesty, your determination. You were unlike anyone I'd ever met." Michaela's heart pounded. "So you bought my company to... what? Get close to me?" "I bought your company because it deserved to succeed, because you deserved that chance." He ran a hand through his hair. "The fact that it meant I could see you again was a benefit I couldn't ignore." "Elijah, I know it sounds crazy, impulsive. My father's right about that much." He laughed without humor. "But I've spent my whole life making safe, calculated decisions. For once, I followed my instincts." Michaela didn't know how to respond. Part of her was flattered, even moved. Another part was terrified by the implications. "I should still go," she said finally. "This is a lot to process." He nodded, respecting her boundaries. "I understand. Let me call my driver." "No, I'll get a ride." She needed space, air, time to think. At the elevator, she turned back to him. "For what it's worth, I don't regret taking your investment. Whatever your reasons were." His smile was tinged with sadness. "I don't regret it either, not for a second." The next morning, Michaela arrived at work early, determined to focus on business despite the emotional turmoil of the previous night. She was surprised to find Tasha waiting in her office. "Go, why didn't you tell me?" Tasha demanded, holding up her phone with the tabloid article. "Because it's not true," Michaela sighed. "We're not involved." "And that's why you were at his penthouse last night." Michaela stared at her. "How did you—" "It's all over social media." Tasha showed her another article with a grainy photo of Michaela entering Elijah's building. "Someone's got a big mouth in that fancy building's security team." "This is a nightmare," Michaela groaned, sinking into her chair. "Is it?" Tasha perched on the desk. "The man is gorgeous, brilliant, and clearly into you. Most women would consider that a dream." "It's complicated, Tash. He's not just my investor. He owns my company. Details, details, serious details. What happens to my business if things go wrong? What happens to everything I've built?" Before Tasha could respond, Michaela's assistant knocked on the door. "Ms. Dunn," Mr. Wolf asked if you could join the board meeting. They're about to start. Michaela took a deep breath. "Tell him I'll be right there." After her assistant left, Tasha gave her a pointed look. "Just be honest with yourself about what you really want, that's all I'm saying." The board meeting was tense from the moment Michaela entered. Harold sat opposite Elijah, with board members filling the remaining seats. "Ms. Dunn, thank you for joining us," Elijah said formally. Harold cleared his throat. "We were discussing the recent publicity surrounding Done Right Skincare. The PR team has prepared a statement clarifying that our relationship is strictly professional," Elijah said. "Unless anyone has objections," an older woman at the far end of the table spoke up. "I think we need to address the elephant in the room. If there is a personal relationship developing between you two, it could pose conflicts of interest." "There is no personal relationship," Michaela said firmly, avoiding Elijah's gaze. Harold scoffed. "The tabloids seem to think otherwise. Since when do we base business decisions on tabloids?" Elijah countered. The meeting deteriorated from there, with thinly veiled accusations and concerns about company image that made Michaela's blood boil. Through it all, Elijah remained composed, defending both her and the company with unwavering confidence. When it finally ended, Michaela felt emotionally drained. She returned to her office and closed the door, needing a moment alone. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Elijah entered, his expression concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Not really." She gestured to the window. "I built my company from nothing, Elijah. From my kitchen counter. Now it's being reduced to gossip and innuendo. I'm sorry, this is my fault." "No, it's not." "Well, not entirely," she sighed. "We both made choices that led us here." He moved closer. "What do you want to do now?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to run back to my tiny apartment and start over. And the other part?" She met his gaze. "The other part knows. I've never had a better chance to make my dreams reality than with you." "I didn't just want to invest in your company, Michaela," he said softly. "I wanted to invest in you for a lifetime." The words hung between them, full of promise and risk. Before she could respond, her phone rang. The display showed an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered. "Ms. Dunn, this is Thomas Reynolds from Reynolds Law Group. I'm calling regarding a cease and desist order filed against Done Right Skincare by my client, Marcus Harris." Michaela felt the blood drain from her face. "What?" "Mr. Harris claims co-ownership of your product formulations. We've submitted documentation to support his substantial contribution to the development of your cornerstone products." "That's a lie." "The documentation suggests otherwise. Mr. Harris has extensive notes and dated emails regarding formula development. We'll see you in court, Ms. Dunn." The call ended. Michaela stared at the phone in disbelief. "What is it?" Elijah asked, alarmed by her expression. "Marcus," she whispered. "He's suing me, claiming he helped create my formulas." "That's ridiculous. He can't prove that. The lawyer says he has documentation, notes, emails." She shook her head in confusion. "But that's impossible. He never helped me with anything." Elijah's jaw tightened. "We'll fight this. The company has excellent lawyers." Wait. A terrible thought occurred to her. "Yesterday you knew exactly what Marcus was after. You said he wanted money." She stared at him. "How did you know that?" It was an educated guess. People like that are predictable, or you already knew about him. The pieces were falling into place in her mind. "You did your homework before buying my company, didn't you? Background checks, history. Michaela, did you know about Marcus, about his potential claim?" Her voice rose. "Tell me you didn't know." The slight hesitation before he answered. "Told her everything." "I knew he was your ex-partner," Elijah admitted, "and that he might try to cause problems if the company became successful. But I didn't know he would claim ownership of your formulas." Michaela felt like she'd been slapped. "You knew. All this time, you knew he might come after me, and you didn't warn me. I wanted to protect you." "No. You wanted to control the situation. Just like you controlled everything from the beginning." Anger and betrayal washed over her. "The car that night wasn't coincidence, was it? Nothing about us has been real." "That's not true," he insisted. "Yes, I knew who you were when I picked you up, but everything that happened after, everything. I felt that was real." She shook her head, backing away from him. "I don't believe you, I can't." "Michaela, please, I need time to think." She gathered her purse and jacket. "Don't follow me." As she left the building, Tears blurred her vision. The one person she'd started to trust had been keeping secrets from the beginning. And now, her company, her dream, was under attack. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I told you we needed to talk. This could have been avoided." Marcus. Michaela wiped her tears, anger replacing hurt. Marcus was trying to steal what she'd built, and Elijah had known it might happen. She would not let either man control her fate. It was time to fight back. Michaela sat in her old apartment, surrounded by boxes she'd never fully unpacked. After storming out of the office, this was the only place she could think to go back to where it all began. Her phone had been buzzing non-stop. Calls from Elijah, texts from Tasha, emails from the company lawyers. She ignored them all, needing space to think. On her kitchen counter sat the very first batch of face cream she'd ever made. The formula that started everything, the one Marcus now claimed he helped create. "Liar," she whispered, anger burning in her chest. A knock at the door startled her. Through the peephole, she saw Tasha holding a bottle of wine. "I know you're in there," Tasha called. "Open up before I drink this whole bottle myself." Michaela sighed and unlocked the door. Tasha took one look at her tear-stained face and pulled her into a hug. "That bad, huh?" "Worse." Michaela stepped back to let her in. "Marcus is suing me, claiming he helped create my formulas." "What?" Tasha nearly dropped the wine bottle. "That lying snake. He never helped you with anything except emotional damage. He says he has documentation, notes, emails. That's impossible. He used to make fun of your kitchen experiments, remember?" Tasha uncorked the wine and poured 2 glasses. "And what does Mr. Billionaire have to say about all this?" Michaela's expression darkened. "That's the worst part. Elijah knew Marcus might cause problems. He did background checks before buying my company, but he never warned me." Tasha handed her a glass. "That's messed up, but also kind of standard business practice, due diligence and all that." "Whose side are you on?" "Yours. Always yours." Tasha sat on the couch. "But I'm trying to see the whole picture. Wolf clearly has feelings for you. Maybe he thought he was protecting you by keeping me in the dark. That's not protection, that's control." Michaela took a long sip of wine. "I'm so tired of men thinking they know what's best for me." "So what are you going to do?" "Fight. Marcus has nothing, because he contributed nothing." "And Elijah?" Michaela stared out the window at the city lights. "I don't know. I can't think about that right now." Tasha studied her friend. "You have feelings for him, don't you?" "It doesn't matter. I can't be with someone I don't trust." "Trust can be rebuilt," Tasha said gently. "If it's worth it." "Is it?" Michaela's voice cracked. "From the beginning, he's been playing a role. Driver, investor, savior. Who is he really?" Before Tasha could answer, Michaela's phone rang again. This time it was the company lawyer. "I should take this," she said, stepping into the kitchen. "Hello? Miss Dunn, this is James Wilkins from legal. We've reviewed Mr. Harris's claims. They appear to be based on emails from 3 years ago, where you allegedly discussed formula development with him." "That's impossible. I never emailed Marcus about my formulas. The emails appear to be from your personal account. They're dated consistently over a 6-month period." Michaela felt sick. "They're fake. They have to be. We'll need to investigate their authenticity. In the meantime, Mr. Wolf has authorized us to offer Mr. Harris a settlement." "No," Michaela interrupted. "No settlements. I won't give that liar a penny." After hanging up, she returned to the living room, fuming. "Marcus claims to have emails where I discussed formulas with him. They're fake, Tash. They have to be." "Of course they're fake. But how? Do you prove that?" Michaela paced the small room. "I need to see these supposed emails, and I need to figure out how he created them." Her phone buzzed with a text from Elijah. "Please call me. We need to talk." She ignored it. "You can't avoid him forever," Tasha pointed out. "He owns the company." "I know, but right now I need to focus on Marcus." Another text arrived, this time from an unknown number. "Coffee tomorrow? We can discuss terms. This can all go away quietly." Mayor Michaela showed the message to Tasha. "He's so smug. You're not going alone. I wasn't planning to. In fact," Michaela began typing a reply. Oak Street Cafe, 10 a.m. Bring your lawyer and your evidence. I'll bring mine. She hit send, a plan forming in her mind. The next morning, Michaela arrived at the cafe 20 minutes early. She'd barely slept, going through old journals and notebooks, gathering every scrap of evidence of her formula development process. James Wilkins, the company lawyer, sat beside her, reviewing documents. Tasha had positioned herself at a nearby table, pretending to work on her laptop but really keeping watch. At precisely 10 a.m., Marcus walked in. He looked exactly as Michaela remembered, handsome in a practiced way, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. A balding man in an expensive suit followed him. "Kayla," Marcus greeted her, leaning in for a kiss on the cheek. She turned her face away. "It's Michaela, and this is James Wilkins, legal counsel for Done Right Skincare." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "All business today? Fine. This is Thomas Reynolds, my attorney." Once they were all seated, Reynolds opened his briefcase and removed a folder. "We have extensive documentation of Mr. Harris's contributions to the initial formulations of what became Done Right products." He slid printed emails across the table. Michaela scanned them, her anger growing. They appeared to be from her email address to Marcus, discussing ingredients, asking for his input, thanking him. "For his suggestions, these are fake," she said flatly. "The timestamps and email headers suggest otherwise," Reynolds replied smoothly. "I never sent these, ever." She turned to Marcus. "You know that. What are you really after?" Marcus smiled. "Recognition for my contributions. And compensation of course. You want money? I want what's fair. 20% of the company seems reasonable given my role in its creation." Wilkins spoke up. "Mr. Harris, these claims are baseless. My client has extensive documentation of her independent formula development." "As do we," Reynolds countered, "and a court battle would be messy, publicly questioning Ms. Dunn's integrity, examining her relationship with Elijah Wolf. The tabloids would have a field day." Michaela felt a chill. This wasn't just about money, it was about humiliation, about control. "I never took you for a blackmailer, Marcus," she said quietly. "It's business, Kayla, nothing personal. Here's my counteroffer," she said, leaning forward. "You drop this ridiculous claim and walk away, or I'll sue you for defamation, forgery, and extortion." Marcus laughed. "Bold words, but can you back them up?" Before she could respond, the cafe door opened. Elijah walked in, followed by Harold Wolf and two men Michaela didn't recognize. Her heart sank. The last person she wanted to see right now was Elijah. "Sorry I'm late," Elijah said, joining their table without invitation. "Traffic." Marcus's smile faltered. "This was a private meeting. Between you and my company's creative director?" "I think not." Elijah nodded to the men with him. "This is Detective Rodriguez and Special Agent Barnes. They're very interested in your emails, Mr. Harris." The color drained from Marcus's face. "What is this?" Agent Barnes stepped forward. "We're investigating potential wire fraud and computer crimes. Creating fraudulent emails crosses state lines electronically, making it a federal offense." "You can't prove they're fraudulent," Reynolds interjected. "Actually, we can," Elijah said. "Our cybersecurity team found evidence that Ms. Dunn's email was accessed without authorization approximately 2 weeks ago. The timestamps of that breach correspond to when these emails were supposedly discovered in the archives." Detective Rodriguez added, "We also have a witness, a former IT colleague of Mr. Harris, who states he was paid to help fabricate these emails." Marcus stood abruptly. "This is harassment. We're leaving." "I wouldn't," Agent Barnes said. "We have more questions, and leaving now would not look good for you." As Marcus and his lawyer were escorted to a more private table with the officers, Michaela turned to Elijah. "How did you know?" "I didn't. Not for certain. But something about the timing felt wrong." He hesitated. "May I sit?" She nodded, still processing what had just happened. Harold cleared his throat. "I'll wait in the car, Elijah. Ms. Dunn." He nodded curtly and left. Once they were alone, Elijah spoke softly. "I'm sorry for everything. I should have told you about the background checks, about Marcus's history. Yes, you should have. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really protecting myself." He met her gaze. "I was afraid if I told you, you wouldn't take the investment. And I wanted to be near you." The raw honesty in his voice caught her off guard. "Why did your father come today?" she asked, changing the subject. Surprisingly, it was his idea. When I told him what was happening, he said, "No one threatens a wolf investment." Elijah smiled wryly. "It's the closest thing to approval he's ever given regarding you." "I'm honored," she said sarcastically. "You should be. He doesn't defend lost causes." Elijah reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. "Michaela, I know I've made mistakes, but everything I said about how I feel about you, that was real. It still is." Before she could respond, Tasha appeared at her side. "Hate to interrupt, but they're taking Marcus away in handcuffs. Thought you might want to see that." Through the cafe window, Michaela watched as her ex-boyfriend was escorted to a police car. A complex mix of emotions washed over her: relief, vindication, and a lingering anger that he'd tried to steal what she'd worked so hard to build. "It's over," Elijah said beside her. "He can't hurt you or your company now." "My company," she repeated. "Is it though? Really?" His expression softened. "It always has been. The paperwork, the investment, that's just business. The heart and soul of done right is you, Michaela. It always will be." She wanted to believe him, part of her did, but trust once broken wasn't easily repaired. "I need to get back to work," she said finally. "We have products to launch. Does that mean you're staying?" "It means I'm not letting Marcus or anyone else derail what I've built." She met his gaze steadily. "The rest, I'm still figuring out." Elijah nodded, accepting her terms. "I'll give you space, but I'm not giving up. On you or on us." As they left the cafe, Michaela felt something shift inside her. For the first time in weeks, she was certain of her path forward, at least professionally. The personal side would have to wait. The following weeks were a blur of activity, as Done Right prepared for its major product launch. Michaela threw herself into work, finalizing formulations and approving packaging designs. She kept her interactions with Elijah strictly professional, maintaining a careful distance, despite his gentle attempts to rebuild their connection. The news of Marcus's arrest for fraud had generated its own publicity, but the PR team had skillfully redirected focus to the upcoming product line. Pre-orders were exceeding expectations, and major retailers were expressing interest in carrying Done Right products. One evening, as Michaela worked late in the lab, Harold Wolf appeared in the doorway. "Miss Dunn," he said by way of greeting. "Still here at this hour?" She straightened, surprised by his presence. "Mr. Wolf, yes, I'm finalizing the brightening serum formula for production." He entered the lab, looking around with grudging interest. "My wife had skin issues similar to yours. Hyperpigmentation that worsened during pregnancy. Nothing seemed to help." Michaela hadn't expected this personal revelation. "I'm sorry to hear that. She would have appreciated your products." He picked up a sample jar, examining it. "She always said the beauty industry ignored women like her." "That's why I started this company," Michaela said. "Too many women were being overlooked." Harold set down the jar. "My son tells me the pre-orders are impressive." "Yes, we've already sold out of the first production run." "Good." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I may have been hasty in my assessment of your business and of you." Coming from Harold, this was practically an apology. Michaela nodded, accepting it as such. "Thank you. My son has made many impulsive decisions over the years," Harold continued. "Investments that seemed more emotional than logical. This is the first one that appears to be paying off. I'm glad to exceed your expectations." "He cares for you," Harold said abruptly. "More than I've seen him care for anyone in a long time." Michaela didn't know how to respond to this unexpected turn in the conversation. "My son and I don't agree on much," Harold continued, "but we both recognize value when we see it. Don't make him pay forever for one mistake." With that cryptic advice, he nodded and left, leaving Michaela to wonder if she'd imagined the entire interaction. The night before the product launch, the entire team gathered for a celebratory dinner. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Michaela sat at the head of the table, surrounded by the people who had helped bring her dream to life. Elijah sat at the opposite end, giving a toast to the team's hard work. Their eyes met briefly across the table, and the connection she felt surprised her with its intensity. After dinner, as people began to leave, Elijah approached her. "Do you have a minute?" She nodded, and they stepped out onto the restaurant's terrace. The Charlotte skyline glittered before them, a tapestry of lights against the night sky. "I wanted to give you something before tomorrow's craziness," he said, handing her a small box. Inside was a silver pendant in the shape of a mortar and pestle, the tools she'd used to mix her very first formulas. "It's beautiful," she said, genuinely. Touched. "Look at the back." Engraved on the reverse were the words, "To New Beginnings, E." "I had it made weeks ago," he explained. "Before everything happened with Marcus. Before—" he hesitated. "Before I messed things up between us." Michaela ran her finger over the engraving. "Thank you. I know you're still angry with me. You have every right to be." He leaned against the railing. "But I want you to know that buying your company was the best decision I ever made. Not because of the business potential, though that's certainly proven itself, but because it brought you into my life." The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache. Despite everything, she'd missed him. Their conversations, the way he looked at her like she was remarkable. "I'm not angry anymore," she admitted. "Just cautious." "I understand." He smiled sadly. "Caution is probably wise where I'm concerned." "Why did you really pick me up that night?" she asked suddenly. "The truth this time." Elijah took a deep breath. "The truth is, I saw your photo in the investment prospectus and couldn't stop thinking about you. Your eyes, the determination in them. When the opportunity came to meet you without the pressure of a formal pitch meeting, I took it." "So it was attraction?" "Initially, yes. But then you started talking about your business, your dreams. How you wouldn't compromise on quality even when everyone told you to." His expression softened. "By the time you got out of my car, I was already falling for you. Not just your face, but your mind, your heart." Michaela wanted to believe him, more than she'd wanted anything in a long time. "I need to know something," she said. "If things had gone differently, if I'd never found out about Marcus, about the background checks, would you have ever told me the truth?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "I'd been trying to find the right moment, but there's never a good time to admit you've been keeping secrets." She studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. She found none. "I want to trust you, Elijah," she said softly. "I just don't know if I can." He nodded, understanding. "Trust takes time. I'm willing to wait, to earn it back day by day." He reached for her hand, then hesitated. "May I?" She nodded, and he took her hand in his, the touch sending warmth through her. "Whatever happens between us," he said, "I want you to know that tomorrow is going to be amazing. Your products are going to change lives, Michaela, just like you've changed mine." The moment was interrupted by Tasha, who poked her head through the terrace doors. "Sorry to break up the moment, but you need to see this," she said, holding up her phone. On the screen was a notification from a major beauty industry blog. "Breaking luxury beauty giant Belvedere makes bid for Done Right skincare." "What?" Michaela grabbed the phone. "This can't be right. We're not for sale." She looked at Elijah, whose expression had darkened. "Did you know about this?" "They approached us last week," he admitted. "Made an offer to buy Done Right and take it international. I told them we weren't interested." "Why wouldn't you tell me about this?" The familiar feeling of betrayal began to surface again, because it wasn't a real offer. They wanted to strip the company down, take the formulas and rebrand everything under the Belvedere name. His jaw tightened. "They wanted to erase you from your own creation." "Shouldn't that have been my decision?" "Yes." "You're right." He ran a hand through his hair. "I should have told you, but they made it clear they wanted the formulas, not the founder. They specifically said they would reimagine the brand identity to fit their corporate image, which means they would have removed your name, your story, everything that makes Done Right special." His eyes held hers. I couldn't let that happen. Not to you, not to what you've built. Tasha whistled low. So you turned down what was probably millions of dollars to protect Michaela's name on the brand. It wasn't just millions, Elijah said quietly. It was billions. Belvedere is the biggest player in the industry. This acquisition would have been the crown jewel of their diversity initiative. Michaela felt dizzy at the magnitude of what he was saying. You risked your investment, your reputation with the board. For my name? His gaze never wavered. I risked it because one day I want to share that name. The implication of his words hung in the air between them. Tasha slowly backed away, giving them privacy. Elijah, Michaela began, not sure what to say. Before she could continue, her phone rang. It was James Wilkins, the company lawyer. Ms. Dunn, I apologize for calling so late, but there's a situation you need to be aware of. His voice was tense. Marcus Harris has been released on bail and he's filed a new lawsuit, not against you personally this time, but against Dunn Wright Skincare. On what grounds? She asked, dread pooling in her stomach. He claims to have evidence that one of your key formulations infringes on a patent held by a former employer of his. He's asking for an emergency injunction to stop tomorrow's product launch. Michaela felt the blood drain from her face. That's impossible. My formulas are completely original. We believe you, but the judge has agreed to hear arguments in the morning. We need to prepare immediately. After she hung up, Elijah could see the devastation on her face. What is it? Marcus, she whispered. He's trying to stop the launch. Claims one of my formulas infringes on a patent. She looked up at Elijah, a terrible suspicion forming. Tell me you didn't know about this too. Tell me this isn't another thing you kept from me. I swear, Michaela, I had no idea. His expression was one of genuine shock, but we'll fight this together. She wanted to believe him. After everything, after the beautiful words he'd just spoken, she desperately wanted to trust that he was being honest. But the doubt had taken root again, flowering into fear and suspicion. Tell me you didn't know, she repeated, her voice breaking. I didn't know, he said firmly, reaching for her hands. Michaela, look at me. I would never keep something like this from you. Not again. Not after everything. She searched his eyes, looking for the truth. What she saw there, the sincerity, the concern, the love, finally broke through her walls of doubt. I believe you, she whispered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. We'll get through this, I promise. As they stood there on the terrace, the city lights twinkling around them, Michaela felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Tomorrow, everything she'd worked for hung in the balance, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone in the fight. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Morning came too quickly. Michaela had barely slept, spending most of the night with the legal team preparing for the emergency hearing. The irony wasn't lost on her. Today should have been the triumphant launch of Dunn Wright Skincare's new line. Instead, she was heading to court to defend her life's work. Elijah met her at the courthouse steps, looking as tired as she felt, but immaculately dressed in a charcoal suit. Ready? He asked, offering his hand. She took it, drawing strength from his touch. As I'll ever be. Inside, the courtroom was already filling with reporters. News of the last-minute injunction attempt had spread quickly through the beauty industry. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table, looking smug. Beside him was not just his lawyer from before, but an entire team of attorneys from Preston and Hayes, one of the most expensive law firms in the country. How is he affording them? Michaela whispered to James Wilkins. Someone's backing him, Wilkins replied grimly. The question is who? Before she could speculate further, the bailiff called the court to order. Judge Eleanor Martinez entered, a stern-looking woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. We're here on the matter of Harris versus Dunn Wright Skincare, she announced. This is a hearing on the plaintiff's request for an emergency injunction to halt the defendant's product launch scheduled for today. Mr. Reynolds, you may begin. Marcus's lawyer approached the bench. Your Honor, my client has evidence that Dunn Wright's brightening serum, the centerpiece of today's planned launch, directly infringes on a patented formula owned by Belvedere Beauty, Mr. Harris's former employer. Michaela gasped. Belvedere, the same company that had tried to buy them out. Mr. Harris was employed in Belvedere's R&D department for 5 years, Reynolds continued. During that time, he became familiar with a proprietary formula they were developing. We have documentation showing that Ms. Dunn's formula uses an identical combination of key active ingredients in nearly identical proportions. He presented a stack of papers to the judge. The similarities are too extensive to be coincidental. Judge Martinez reviewed the documents, then turned to Wilkins. "Counselor," Wilkins rose. "Your Honor, these claims are baseless. Ms. Dunn developed her formulas independently over several years in her own home. We have extensive documentation of her development process, including dated journal entries, ingredient purchase receipts, and prototype samples. The fact remains," Reynolds countered, "that the final formula contains the same combination of ingredients as Belvedere's patented formula." "If I may, Your Honor," Wilkins said, "great minds often reach similar conclusions independently, especially when working toward the same goal. The active ingredients in question are all known in the industry for their effectiveness. What's unique is not the ingredients themselves, but how they're stabilized and delivered to the skin." The judge turned to Michaela. "Ms. Dunn, did you have any knowledge of Belvedere's formula during your development process?" "Absolutely not, Your Honor," Michaela replied firmly. "I've never worked for Belvedere or had access to their research. My formulas came from years of personal experimentation to address my own skin concerns." Judge Martinez nodded, then addressed both sides. "I'll take a brief recess to review these documents more thoroughly." As the judge left the courtroom, Elijah leaned close to Michaela. "Belvedere is behind this. They couldn't buy your company, so they're trying to destroy it." "But how would they even know about Marcus?" she whispered back. "The tabloids," he realized. "All those stories about us. They must have connected the dots to your ex-boyfriend." Before they could discuss it further, the courtroom doors opened. Harold Wolf entered, followed by a severe-looking woman in her 50s whom Michaela recognized from business magazines. Victoria Chambers, CEO of Belvedere Beauty. Elijah's expression hardened. "What are they doing here?" Harold approached them while Victoria took a seat behind Marcus. "Father," Elijah greeted him coolly, "I didn't expect to see you here." "I brought reinforcements," Harold replied, nodding toward a group of people entering the courtroom. "The head of our legal department and 2 patent attorneys. They've been working through the night." Michaela stared at him in surprise. "You're helping us?" "As I told you before, Ms. Dunn, no one threatens a Wolf investment." He glanced at his son. "Or someone my son cares about." The Wolf legal team quickly huddled with Wilkins, sharing notes and strategies. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted as Marcus and his lawyers noticed the new arrivals. When the judge returned, Wilkins requested permission to call a witness. "Your Honor, we'd like to call Dr. Sarah Chen, former head of R&D at Belvedere Beauty." A petite Asian woman approached the stand. After being sworn in, she testified that while Belvedere did hold a patent similar to Michaela's formula, their version had never successfully stabilized the active ingredients, the very problem Michaela had solved. "In fact," Dr. Chen continued, "I reviewed Ms. Dunn's formula last night at the request of Wolf Enterprises. Her stabilization method is completely novel, using a natural polymer matrix that our team at Belvedere never considered. It's quite brilliant, actually." Reynolds objected, but the judge overruled him. Dr. Chen continued to explain the significant differences between the formulas, systematically dismantling Marcus's claims. By the time she finished, even Judge Martinez looked impressed. "Mr. Reynolds, do you have any rebuttal to this expert testimony?" Reynolds conferred hurriedly with his team, then reluctantly stood. "We request a brief recess to consult with our client, Your Honor." Granted. 15 minutes, as the courtroom emptied for the break, Michaela turned to Harold. "How did you find Dr. Chen?" "I made some calls," he said simply. "Victoria Chambers has made enemies over the years. Dr. Chen was forced out of Belvedere last year in a power struggle. She was happy to help." Elijah shook his head in amazement. "I've never seen you mobilize resources this quickly, Father." "Not even for the Thompson merger." Harold straightened his tie. The Thompson merger didn't matter to you the way this does. He met his son's gaze. I may not always show it, Elijah, but your happiness matters to me. Before Elijah could respond, Reynolds approached their table. My client would like to discuss a settlement. Wilkins raised an eyebrow. We're listening. Mr. Harris will drop the lawsuit and sign a statement acknowledging he has no claim to Ms. Dunn's formulas or company. And, in return, Michaela asked skeptically, a confidential cash settlement, no admission of wrongdoing on anyone's part. Elijah scoffed. After what he's put Michaela through, absolutely not. We want full disclosure, Michaela added. Who's been backing him? Who paid for Preston and Hayes? Reynolds hesitated. I'm not at liberty to... Victoria Chambers, Harold interrupted. It's obvious, and I believe she's about to cut her losses. He nodded toward the back of the courtroom, where Victoria was engaged in a heated whisper with Marcus. When court resumed, Reynolds announced that his client was withdrawing the request for an injunction. Judge Martinez, looking unsurprised, dismissed the case. As they gathered their things to leave, Victoria Chambers approached their table. This isn't over, she said coldly. Belvedere doesn't take kindly to being embarrassed in public. Neither do the Wolfs, Harold replied. And unlike you, Victoria, we don't need to resort to underhanded tactics. You've made a powerful enemy. Today, she warned Michaela. No, Michaela replied calmly. I've exposed one. There's a difference. Victoria's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more before stalking away. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. Elijah stepped forward, shielding Michaela as he made a brief statement. Dunn Wright Skincare's launch will proceed as planned. The court has recognized what we've known all along, that Michaela Dunn's formulations are both original and innovative, as Sue. They made their way to the waiting car. Michaela felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had won. Her products would launch today, after all. Thank you, she said to Harold as they reached the car. For everything you did in there. He nodded, curtly. You held your ground admirably, Ms. Dunn. My son chose well. It was the closest thing to approval she was likely to get, but it meant more than she expected. I'll meet you at the launch event, Harold told Elijah. There are a few calls I need to make first. As the car pulled away, Michaela turned to Elijah. Your father continues to surprise me. Me too, he admitted. I've never seen him fight so hard for something that wasn't directly benefiting him. Maybe he's fighting for you. Elijah considered this. Maybe, or maybe he's finally seeing what I saw from the beginning, that you're extraordinary, Michaela Dunn. She felt herself blush. We should get to the venue. We have a launch to save. The grand ballroom of the Charlotte Regency Hotel had been transformed for the Dunn Wright Skincare launch. Display tables showcased the products in elegant arrangements. A stage was set up at one end, with a podium and large screens showing brand imagery. Despite the morning's chaos, everything was ready. The marketing team had managed to keep the event on schedule, and beauty editors, influencers, and retailers were already arriving. Michaela retreated to a private room to change into her launch outfit, a cream-colored suit that Tasha had helped her select. As she applied her makeup, there was a knock at the door. Come in, she called, expecting Tasha or her assistant. Instead, Elijah entered holding a small velvet box. A launch gift, he explained, to celebrate your triumph. Inside was a beautiful gold bracelet with a single charm, a tiny mortar and pestle that matched the pendant he'd given her the night before. It's perfect, she said softly as he fastened it around her wrist. There's room for more charms, he told her. One for each milestone in your journey. The thoughtfulness of the gift touched her deeply. Thank you, Elijah. Not just for this, but for believing in me, for fighting for my company today. Always, he promised. Though I have to admit, seeing my father jump to your defense was unexpected. He's not as cold as he seems, is he? No, just damaged. Elijah's expression grew distant. After my mother died, something in him broke. The only way he knew to cope was to pour himself into work, to build something that would last. He wanted the same for me. And what do you want? She asked. His eyes met hers. Something real, someone who sees me, not just the Wolf name or fortune. He took her hand. I want you, Michaela. I have from the moment you stepped into my car. that night. The intensity of his gaze made her heart race. There was no deception there, no calculation, just raw honesty and vulnerability. "I want you too," she admitted. "But I'm scared, Elijah. Everything's happened so fast." "We can take it slow," he assured her, "one day at a time." A knock at the door interrupted them. "5 minutes, Ms. Dunn," called her assistant. "I should go," Elijah said. "You need to prepare." She caught his hand. "Stay, please. I want you there when I go on stage." He smiled, bringing her hand to his lips. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." The launch was everything Michaela had dreamed of and more. As she took the stage to thunderous applause, she spotted familiar faces in the crowd. Tasha beaming proudly in the front row, Harold standing at the back, observing with what might almost be a smile, and Elijah watching her with unguarded admiration. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "Done Right Skincare was born in my kitchen 3 years ago out of frustration and hope. Frustration that nothing on the market addressed my specific skin concerns, and hope that I could create something better. Not just for myself, but for everyone who's felt overlooked by the beauty industry." As she continued her speech, detailing the journey from kitchen experiments to today's launch, she felt a surreal sense of accomplishment. Despite every obstacle, limited resources, Marcus's betrayal, Belvedere's attempted sabotage, she had persevered. Her products would now help thousands of people feel more confident in their skin. "I wouldn't be here today without my incredible team," she concluded. "And without one person who believed in me when I needed it most." Her eyes found Elijah's. Sometimes the right person enters your life at exactly the right moment, and everything changes. After the speech, Michaela was swept up in a whirlwind of congratulations, interviews, and product demonstrations. The response was overwhelming. Retailers were already requesting increased orders, and beauty editors were predicting Done Right would be the breakout brand of the year. Late in the evening, as the event began to wind down, Elijah found her surrounded by a group of admirers. "Excuse me," he said politely, "but I need to borrow Ms. Dunn for a moment." He led her to a quiet corner. "There's someone I want you to meet." A distinguished older woman with kind eyes approached them. She had Elijah's smile and a quiet elegance about her. "Michaela, this is my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Michaela said, shaking her hand. "The pleasure is mine," Patricia replied warmly. "I've heard so much about you from Elijah and, surprisingly, from my brother-in-law. Harold mentioned me, called me personally to invite me tonight, said it was important to Elijah and therefore important to the family." She smiled knowingly. "That's as close to approval as Harold gets." "Aunt Patricia was my mother's best friend," Elijah explained. "She knows all her stories, including how she and Harold met," Patricia added. "He wasn't always the stern businessman you know. Once he was just a young man who fell head over heels for my sister after she spilled coffee all over his new suit." Michaela couldn't help but smile at the image. "I find that hard to picture. Grief changes people," Patricia said gently. "But underneath it all, Harold still has the capacity to care deeply. I saw it tonight, the way he watched both of you." After Patricia excused herself to greet an old friend, Elijah turned to Michaela. "I wanted you to meet her because she's the keeper of my family's history, the real history, not just the corporate legacy." "Thank you for sharing that with me," Michaela said, touched by the gesture. "There's something else I want to share with you." He took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about making some changes in my life." "What kind of changes?" "I'm stepping back from some of my responsibilities at Wolf Enterprises," he said, "delegating more, making space for things that matter." "Your father won't be happy about that." Actually, it was partly his idea. After today's court battle, we had a real conversation, maybe our first in years. Elijah smiled wryly. He said life's too short to ignore what truly matters. Coming from him, that was an unexpected. "And what truly matters to you, Elijah?" "This." He gestured around them. "Building something meaningful. Making a difference." His eyes held hers. "And you, Michaela, you matter to me more than I ever thought possible." Before she could respond, Harold approached them. "Congratulations, Ms. Dunn. The launch appears to be a success." "Thank you, Mr. Wolf, and thank you again for your help today." He nodded. "Good business is worth defending, and as I'm beginning to see, so are good people." He turned to his son. "The board will be pleased. This investment may turn out to be your most profitable decision yet." "It already is," Elijah replied, his eyes on Michaela. "Just not in the way they measure." Harold cleared his throat. "Yes. Well, I should be going, early meeting tomorrow." He hesitated, then added, "Ms. Dunn, my wife's birthday is next month. She would have been 65. I'm hosting a small gathering at the estate. Perhaps you would join us." The invitation clearly meant more than it appeared on the surface. "I'd be honored," Michaela replied. After Harold left, Michaela turned to Elijah in amazement. "Did your father just invite me to a family event?" "I believe he did." Elijah looked equally surprised. Wonders never cease. As the event concluded, they stepped outside into the cool evening air. The city lights sparkled around them, and for a moment, they stood in comfortable silence. "What happens now?" Michaela asked finally. "Now done right becomes the success it was always meant to be. With you at the helm, creating products that change lives. And us, what happens with us?" Elijah took her hand, his thumb gently tracing circles on her palm. "That's up to you. I know what I want, but I also know trust takes time to rebuild." "It does," she agreed, "but some things are worth the work." She leaned forward and kissed him softly. It was gentle, tentative, a beginning rather than a conclusion. When they parted, Elijah's eyes shone with emotion. "I've wanted to do that since that first night in my car." "I'm glad you waited," she said. "Some things are better when they're earned, not given." He nodded, understanding the deeper meaning in her words. "I'll earn your trust again, Michaela." "Day by day. I know you will," she smiled. "And I'll be right here watching you try." 6 months later, Done Right Skincare had exceeded all expectations. The products were in major retailers nationwide, with international expansion on the horizon. Michaela had been featured in beauty magazines and business journals alike, celebrated as an innovator and entrepreneur. On a warm summer evening, she stood in her new lab, a state-of-the-art facility that dwarfed her original kitchen setup. She was working on a new formula, something special for sensitive skin around the eyes. Elijah entered quietly, watching her work with evident admiration. Over the past months, their relationship had deepened gradually, built on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. He had kept his promise, earning back her trust through consistent actions rather than just words. "How's the new formula coming?" he asked. "Almost there," she replied. "Just need to get the texture perfect." He moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. The quarterly numbers came in. Done Right has officially become the fastest-growing skincare brand in our portfolio. "That's wonderful," she said, leaning back against him. "Though I'm more excited about the messages from customers, women who finally found products that work for them. That's why you're successful, you know, because you genuinely care about the people who use your products." She turned in his arms to face him. "We're successful because we make a good team. Your business sense, my formulations." "Speaking of teams," he said, suddenly looking nervous, "there's something I want to ask you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, larger than the one that had held her bracelet. Michaela's heart began to race as he opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring. "Michaela Dunn," he said softly. "When you got into my car that night, neither of us knew where the journey would lead. But I think somehow my heart recognized yours immediately." Tears filled her eyes as he continued. "You've taught me what real strength looks like, what integrity means, what love feels like." He took a deep breath. "I don't want to just invest in your company anymore. I want to invest in our future, together." He knelt before her, holding up the ring. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, Michaela was transported back to that rainy night, sitting in the back of his car, pouring out her fears to a kind stranger who had simply said, "Maybe you just need someone real to believe in you." He had been right, and now here he was, the realest thing in her life. "Yes," she whispered, joy bubbling up inside her. "Yes, I'll marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, she added with a smile, "On one condition." "Anything." He Promised. You have to let me drive sometimes. Elijah laughed, pulling her into his arms. Deal, as long as you promise to tell me where we're going. That's the best part, she said, kissing him softly. We'll figure it out together. Outside, the lab windows, the Charlotte skyline glittered against the deepening twilight. Somewhere in that city was the spot where a flustered entrepreneur had first met a quietly observant driver. The beginning of a journey neither could have predicted. Sometimes the most unexpected detours lead to exactly where you're meant to. As Elijah held her close, Michaela knew with absolute certainty that she had finally found her destination. Not a place, but a person. Someone real who believed in her, and that made all the difference. The end.